The King's Economy. Why financial freedom is the standard every man should be building toward. Let me ask you something, and I need you to be honest with yourself when you answer it. If your job called you tomorrow and told you that you were no longer needed, how long could you survive? Not comfortably, not at the level you are used to. Just survive. Pay your rent or your mortgage, keep the lights on, keep food on the table. How long? A month, 2 months, 3? For most men watching this right now, that answer is terrifying. Not because they are lazy, not because they have not been working, but because nobody ever told them the truth about money. Nobody ever sat them down and explained the difference between earning and building, between surviving and being free. Tonight, that conversation ends. Financial freedom is not a dream reserved for the lucky few. It is the standard every man of God should be actively working toward. And I am going to show you exactly why most men never get there, what is actually keeping them locked out of it, and what a man has to start doing differently if he is serious about building something that does not require him to trade every hour of his life just to keep the lights on. Before I get into the how, I need to establish the what, because most men have never seen a clear picture of what financial freedom actually looks like, and they are chasing something they cannot define. Financial freedom is not about being rich. It is not about a specific number in a bank account or a certain kind of car in the driveway or a house in a particular neighborhood. Financial freedom is about one thing: options. It is the point in a man's life where his money is working hard enough that he is no longer required to trade his time just to survive. Where the bills are covered not because he showed up this week, but because he built something that generates whether he shows up or not. Where he can look at his calendar and make decisions based on his purpose and his family and his calling, instead of based on what the job will allow. A man whose money is working for him is a man whose time belongs to him. And a man whose time belongs to him is a man who can actually lead his household, be present with his children, pursue what God put him on this earth to do, and give generously without a paycheck controlling his obedience. That is what we are building toward, not a number. Freedom. Now let me tell you the first thing that is standing between most men and that freedom. And it is something that is going to make some people uncomfortable because it challenges something most people were taught to respect without questioning. The school system. I want to be clear about what I am saying and what I am not saying. Education is not the enemy. Knowledge is never the enemy. But the system that was built around education in this country was not designed to produce free men. It was designed to produce workers. It was engineered from the beginning to take a boy, put him through 12 to 16 years of structured instruction, and produce at the end of that process a man who knows how to follow directions, show up on time, complete assigned tasks, and hand the results to someone else in exchange for a paycheck. That is the product the system was built to manufacture: an employee, a man who is useful to someone else's vision. Someone who was never taught how to build his own. Ask yourself what you learned in school about money, about compound interest, about assets and liabilities, about how to read a balance sheet, about how to build a business, about how to create income that does not require your physical presence, about how to invest so that your money multiplies while you sleep. You learned almost none of it. Because a man who understands those things is a man who can build his own economy. And a man who can build his own economy is a man who is very difficult to control. The system does not need free men, it needs workers. And school is where workers are made. Understand that. Not so you can be bitter about it. So you can take responsibility for educating yourself about the things the system deliberately left out. Now let me show you the difference between income and wealth, because this is the distinction that separates men who work their entire lives and die with nothing from men who build something that outlasts them. Income is what you earn. Wealth is what you keep, grow, and multiply. Most men have income their entire lives and never build wealth because they treat every dollar they earn as something to be spent rather than something to be deployed. A man can make a good income and still be financially enslaved if every dollar that comes in has somewhere it is already going before it arrives. The paycheck hits the account, and by the time the rent, the car note, the insurance, the subscriptions, the credit card minimums, and the daily spending are done, there is nothing left to build with. He worked 40 hours that week and ended up exactly where he started. That is not a wealth-building life. That is a survival loop, and the loop continues until a man makes a decision to break it. And here is one of the arms of the octopus that I did not name in the masculine energy script, but belongs in this conversation: the debt trap. The system that educated you to be an employee also built a financial structure specifically designed to keep you in servitude after you started working. Credit cards with interest rates that compound against you while you sleep. Student loans that follow men for decades after they finished the education that was supposed to give them a better life. Car financing that puts men in a payment on a depreciating asset that is worth less the moment they drive it off the lot. Buy now, pay later. Lifestyle inflation that grows every time income grows, so that the gap between what a man earns and what he keeps stays exactly the same no matter how much of a raise he gets. This is not accidental. A man who is buried in payments is a man who cannot afford to quit. He cannot take a risk. He cannot say no to an employer. He cannot walk away from a situation that is destroying him because the debt will not let him leave. Debt is financial slavery dressed up as financial access. And the first move a man who is serious about freedom has to make is to stop letting the system chain him through what it tells him he deserves to have right now. You cannot build toward freedom while you are bleeding out through payments. Proverbs 13:11 says, "Wealth gained hastily will dwindle, but whoever gathers little by little will increase it." That verse is not just wisdom. It is a blueprint. The man who is trying to get rich fast, chasing the shortcut, the scheme, the overnight opportunity, is running in the wrong direction. Wealth is built in the same way a man builds everything else that lasts. Consistently, patiently, one decision at a time over a long period of time. And the man who understands that and commits to the process stops being frustrated by how slow it feels and starts being grateful for every small move forward, because he understands that every small move compounds into something real over time. Now let me talk about the consumer trap, because this is the thing that is draining men who have good income and still cannot figure out why they have nothing to show for it. The system has made spending a form of identity. What you wear, what you drive, where you eat, what phone you carry, what sneakers are on your feet. Status signals that feel like achievement but are actually the opposite of it. Every dollar a man spends on something that goes down in value, a car, clothes, jewelry, the latest phone, a lifestyle he is performing for people who are not paying his bills, is a dollar that is not building his freedom. And the trap is that the culture rewards the performance. Men who look like they are winning get more social validation than men who are actually building quietly. So men choose the performance over the foundation. They look free while being enslaved and wonder why the freedom never arrives. A king is not impressed by what a man looks like. He is impressed by what a man has built. Stop performing wealth. Start building it. Here is what God says about how a man should actually approach his resources. Ecclesiastes 11:2 says, "Invest in 7 ventures, yes, in 8, for you do not know what disaster may come." God literally told men to diversify, to build multiple streams, to not put everything in one place, because one point of failure should never be able to take everything. A man with one income source is one layoff, one health crisis, one economic shift away from losing everything. That is not a kingdom. That is a house of cards. A king builds redundancy into his provision. He does not just have a job, he has a job and a side income and an investment and something he is building on the side that will eventually replace the need for the job entirely. That is the direction. You do not get there overnight. But you do not get there at all if you never start building the second stream while the first one is still running. And this brings me to one of the most important mindset shifts a man has to make on the road to financial freedom: the shift from employee thinking to owner thinking. An employee thinks about how to earn more. An owner thinks about how to build something that earns without him. An employee's ceiling is determined by how many hours he can sell. An owner's ceiling is determined by how well he can build systems, products, services, and investments that generate income independent of his time. School produces employees. Life requires owners. And the transition from one to the other is not a financial move first. It is a mental move first. A man has to decide that he is building toward ownership before he can start making the decisions that lead him there. What can I build? What can I create? What skill do I have that I can package and sell? What investment can I start even if it is small? What business can I build even if it starts on the side while I'm still working? Every owner started somewhere before they were an owner. The question is whether a man decides to start. Luke 16:10 says, "Whoever can be trusted with very little can also be trusted with much." That principle has destroyed the excuses of every man who ever said, "I would handle money better if I just had more of it." You will not, because the habits you have with the little are the same habits you will have with a lot unless you change them deliberately. Financial freedom does not begin with a big opportunity. It begins with faithfulness to what is already in your hand. Budget what you have, eliminate waste, cut debt, save consistently. Invest even in small amounts. Be a faithful steward of the little, and God will trust you with the much. The man who is waiting for the big break before he gets his finances in order is going to wait forever. The man who gets his finances in order with what he already has is positioning himself to receive and handle what is coming. Now let me talk about the weight of all of this, because building toward financial freedom while you are still in the grind, still working the job, still paying down the debt, still building the side income from scratch, is one of the most mentally taxing things a man can do. The stress of knowing you are not where you need to be yet is real. The pressure of looking at the gap between where you are and where you are trying to get is real. And most men either let that pressure break them into paralysis or push them into desperate decisions that set them back further. Neither of those is the right response. Philippians 4:6 says, "Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation by prayer and petition with thanksgiving, present your requests to God." That is not telling you to ignore the pressure. It is telling you where to take it. A man who is building towards something real has to learn how to carry the weight of the process without being crushed by it. You pray over it. You stay in the Word. You stay connected to God, who is the source of everything you are trying to build toward. And then you keep moving. Because anxiety stops progress, and progress is the only thing that closes the gap between where you are and where you are going. Do not let the stress of the process become the reason the process stops. And let me tell you what makes all of this worth it, not the money itself, what the money makes possible. A man who achieves financial freedom gets back the one thing that cannot be manufactured or purchased once it is gone: time. Time with his children while they are still young enough to need him. Time to pursue what God actually put him on this earth to do, instead of what the job requires of him. Time to pour into his marriage, his brotherhood, his community, his legacy, without a boss owning his calendar. Time to give generously, to serve, to build something for the next generation, without a paycheck deciding what he's allowed to do. Money is not the goal. Freedom is. And freedom is what allows a man to be fully present for every role God assigned him. Father, husband, king, builder, servant, leader. You cannot lead well when survival owns your attention. You cannot be present when the debt is screaming louder than the moment you are in. Financial freedom is not about having more. It is about owing less to a system that was never designed to set you free. So here is the charge. Stop spending money on things that go down in value and start putting even a small amount toward things that go up. Cut the debt, not all at once. One payment at a time, highest interest first, until the chains start coming off. Build a second stream. It does not have to be big, it has to exist. Start the investment even if it is small. Compound interest does not care how small you start. It cares how long you stay. Learn what the school system never taught you. Read, listen, find men who are building and learn from them, and steward what is already in your hand faithfully, because the man who cannot be trusted with a little will not be trusted with much. You are not just building a bank account, you are building the foundation for everything that comes after you. Your children should not have to start where you started, they should start where you finished. That is the king's economy, that is the standard. Now go build it. Walk with God while you work for the crown. When he crowns you king, tell the world of the truth you found. That's king-level mindset. Kings don't beg, kings don't bow, kings build.